In our last video, we looked at receipts and entering and tracking receipts and negotiating those things as we liquidate them and deposit the funds and so on. And now we're going to take a look at disbursements. And so we follow our link to disbursement screen, and we're going to see all the disbursements have been entered. As usual, we can open those up and make changes. We can delete things. It's going to show us the amounts and the dates. It's going to let us know if it's just a proposed disbursement, which you'll see here in a moment. So let's take a look at what it is to add a disbursement. Adding disbursements is a little simpler than receipts. We usually don't have to come back to disbursements because you usually have all the information at the time of entering it. You don't have to go back and mark that it got liquidated and all the different things we do with receipts. And so usually we're just coming to the screen once. But first, when we come in, we see that we can mark something as proposed. This would be if for some reason you wanted to put something in the software that you were going to make a disbursement or plan to or thought you should, but you haven't made it yet. So you just want to track it and then go in and finalize it later. You'd mark that as proposed. Of course, this makes us think of reliefs from administration, where we are to notify the court of the debts of the estate, but we haven't actually paid them yet until we get the court order approving it. Next, we have our description of the disbursement. And this is one of those places, the description and the creditor or the recipient, this is one of those places where having autofill feature for your software, for your web browser is really convenient because you probably enter a lot of the same companies for utilities and things like that, the same descriptions, and you'll have just click and select options for autofill if those are things that you do regularly. Speed your entry up quite a bit. But we're going to enter a description, whether that's the payment of a bill, so water bill expense, or if it's inheritance, be it a check for inheritance or an in-kind distribution or anything like that. And then who's it going to? Is it a creditor or a recipient of inheritance? Who is it we need to list here? Then we have the amount or value of what's being transferred out. If it's being paid out of the estate account, we're going to enter the voucher number from the estate account, the check number. And if the disbursement has been made, we're going to go ahead and put in the date. If it's only been proposed, then we'll come back and uncheck that and put in the date whenever we do make the actual distribution. Next, we have to decide or note whether or not this is being paid from the estate account. So is this something where we are paying funds out of our estate account? If so, we need to check that so that the software automatically updates our estate account balance. And then below that, we're going to categorize our disbursements, where they fall in our accounting categories. We have a place to enter notes, much like other places in the software, so we can just keep track of what's going on with different things. We can go back and refer to things if there's a question as to why you paid this or anything like that. And then we do have a section for insolvency designations if you have an insolvent estate. Our insolvency documents are not fully automated yet, which is to say it doesn't do the math for you yet to determine insolvencies and prorated distributions, but it does partially automate and get you a good chunk of the way. So that's the entry of a new disbursement. If we go back out, again, we see all those disbursements as they get entered, they end up here. If we go back out to our case dashboard, while we're on this, since we've now seen receipts and disbursements, we're going to go ahead and take a look at what is actually, I think, one of my favorite features of EstateAssist. That may sound strange, there's a lot of power in here, but it's always bothered me that we seem to have to keep the check register for an estate account separately. And I see people use paper check registers, and I see a lot of people use Excel or any number of things like that. But we've gone ahead and built it in to automate it to simplify things for you. So when we go here to our estate account register, we're going to see all of our estate account related transactions listed in chronological order and with all the detail we need. And it's going to do the math for us. And when I say estate account related transactions, I'm talking about really two things. One, receipts that have been liquidated. Remember, that could mean sold, liquidated, or just a check that's deposited. And they've been marked as having been deposited into the estate account. So the software knows that this receipt, this asset, turned into money, and that money got put in the estate account. And then similarly on the disbursement screen where we just were, that we checked that it was paid from the estate account. If those two things exist, the software is going to track all that for you automatically. And so it's going to check and see every time you had a liquidation that got deposited in the estate account, it's going to credit that to the estate account. Every time you had a disbursement that was paid out, it's going to track that and it's going to debit it from the estate account. And it's going to keep track of just general information like vouchers and things like that. You're not going to open these from this screen. If you need to go back in and adjust something, you'll do that from the receipt or disbursement screens. But you're going to come here to reconcile your accounts, make sure that you know your balances. I've already found this very helpful as I've been using EstateAssist in my practice. It has stood out to me the number of times that I'm in a client meeting and a client asks how much money we have available in the estate account to maybe pay an early bill or deal with something that needs paid that's of concern. And in the past, I'd have to go ask my assistant or go pull the file or something like that. And now I'm happy to say that EstateAssist comes up really well on my iPad, and I can look right at the estate account balance right there and see what's going on. And so it's going to keep our running balance all the way through. And of course, as we get later in things and have everything paid, it's going to tell us how much we have left so we can start doing calculations for inheritance distributions. And so eventually, of course, we were paying everything out and coming down to zero. And as I said, I know this may seem somewhat basic and intuitive, but I really like this feature. I find it really helpful, and I think it's something that probate software needs to have to keep track of what's going on in your account very easily.